Hello everyone and welcome to the Fully Booked Penguin channel. Hello, I am your host, the channel owner, Hannah, and I am here to bring you my November reading wrap-up. This month we got 10 books read. There was a spattering of different genres. 10 is a great number of books, to be honest. I just did less than I thought I would. I didn't hit my TBR goal because I was also taking part in a writing challenge and my brain just couldn't handle that much. Now, I forgot to do the intro, so this is the same day as I'm going to do the outro, but no one really cares. Do you? I'm not going to give you stats this time, I'm sorry, you're just going to get the reviews. So let's get into the video. Okay, the first book we are reviewing today is Just Don't Fall by Emma St. Clair. And it is the first book in the Abbey series, as well as the first book in the Sweater Weather. So what is Just Don't Fall about? Well, we follow Parker, who is the social media marketing manager of the Abbey's ice hockey team. And we start out with a new hockey player coming to join the team, and he's not really happy that he has to do TikTok dances as part of his contract. Now, the reason Logan has joined the Appies is because even though he's an NHL player, he's been put down to the lower leagues because, well, he got injured, then he kind of had a confrontation with a fan, and then, well, he was rumoured to not be a team player, and therefore they moved him to the Appies. And his whole idea is that he's only going to be here a short while, and then he's going to go back to his national team, because that's his whole thing, is he's a hockey player. Because that's his whole personality, is ice hockey player. That's all. He just likes to be on the ice, playing his ice hockey, and everything else about him is just kind of dulled off. The thing is, Parker and Logan have a bit of history, because Logan is Parker's older brother's old best friend, former best friend. I say former because Logan actually left out of the blue, all of a sudden, ghosted them, never contacted them about 10 years ago, and they don't know why. And it kind of broke Parker's heart because she had a huge crush on Logan. So her crush left. The brother had no idea why he'd left. And they knew that he obviously joined the NHL, but beyond that, they had no explanation. Anyway, so Logan's back in town, and Parker's feelings are just the same, if not growing stronger. And Logan now, who formerly wasn't really interested in young Peter Parker, as he calls her, other than as like a younger sort of sisterly friendship thing. But now she's hot and still a bright spark in his dull ice hockey life. Anyway, Parker, she tells her dad that she's bringing a date to some gala thing because, you know, the father and mother are uppity rich people, and she's like, I've already got a date, because the father wants to set her up with some slime bucket, really. And Parker's like, no thanks, Dad, I think I have a date already, it's Logan. Anyway, so she ends up telling Logan about this conversation because he says, I will make a deal for getting less dancing or no dancing in the TikTok account. And she's like, deal, can you be my date? And it sort of goes on from there. It's a fake dating, brother's former best friend, ice hockey, sports, romance thing. This was my first little dabble into the romance scene. It is a closed door, and pretty much that means that there's kissing and waist holding and hot feelings, but none of the super spicy, explicit stuff. It was slightly more physical than I prefer. I like my emotional connections rather than my physical attractions. And they are very, this person's hot kind of thing. Now, my biggest thing with the book was that there's not miscommunication, there's just no communication. As in, they communicate about everything but the important things, and then they decide to use avoidance tactics instead of talking about what's actually important. And so about 90% of the book is just them not telling each other what they're actually feeling or thinking. Which I know with the fake dating it tends to be the way, but come on, people, just speak. Just speak. And I'm like, you would not be doing all this stuff with someone you didn't like. You wouldn't see me holding the bicep or, you know, touching the abs of someone I didn't like, but maybe that's just me. Not that I've had many opportunities to touch abs, but I'd hope we were married by that point, because otherwise, no ab touching. I didn't enter this book thinking it was going to be the finest piece of literature out there. I just wanted a fun, short romance, and, you know, it delivered. Was I just like, these characters need to talk? Absolutely. Yep. And really, the book would have been way shorter if they had just spoken to each other. I know romance authors love the whole, the bloke is rich so he buys the girl tons of stuff, and honestly, I think that's just, it's so funny. It's a good thing she already liked him before he started pampering her, and that's why the pampering happens. Less so if she didn't like him and he's like pampering her with gifts, because that's love bombing and just trying to purchase affection, which, you know. But anyway, that wasn't it. They both liked each other, it's okay. But I was never really super annoyed with them or face palming, which I often get with some romance subplots. So I guess in that aspect it's good. I gave it a 3.5, mainly because, you know, the whole plot is just them not communicating with each other. Well, they do communicate, but not about the important things, and the girl is very much avoidance tactics. Like, the bloke will try to speak about his feelings, or speak about a serious discussion, she's like, gone. She's out of here. She's gone. Anyway, that was Just Don't Fall by Emma St. Clair. 3.5 stars. It is a contemporary sports romance, and the sport is ice hockey. Side note, the other ice hockey players were pretty good too. They're very cookie cutter, but it's okay because it's a cookie cutter romance anyway, so you expect it. They tick all the boxes of cookie cutter romance. We are here. Yes, I am wearing a Christmas top. Does Christmas have to do with any of the books today? No. No, but I'm behind on my reviews, so we're going to sit down. I have a couple of hours before I do a writing sprint, so here we are. Book 1 is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. What is this book? Well, it has pretty much zero plot. It's pretty much just a visual story. The style is just sketches with random quotes. Well, not quotes, but little lines that you would probably find on Instagram for the inspirational girlies. The first one here is, "I'm so small," said the mole. "Yes," said the boy, "but you make a huge difference." You know, it's like little quotes like that all the way through. I mean, it's cute, but I must say, I went into it thinking there was going to be a slight plot, but there isn't really. So some of the quotes, of course, will speak to their audience, and they'll be like, wow, this really inspires or really speaks to me, and others will be like, this is a bit cringy, bit cheesy, really. I am somewhere in between. Was it cheesy? Yes. But were some of the quotes cute? Yes. And the sketch style of the artwork was pretty cute too. Now, I did get the book for sale, so it was on sale when I got it. Would I have paid the full amount for this? Probably not. As I say, some of the quotes, if you look at it and think about it from one perspective, it will be really deep and meaningful, but then at the same time, they're just empty words the rest of the time. They sound really good, but if you really think about it, you're the one adding depth to it in your own mind rather than the words having much depth. You're backing it up with the depth rather than the actual quote having much substance to it. But as I say, it was still cute, and I wasn't sure how to rate it because of it. I think I gave it a 4 on Storygraph, and I think I'll still give it a 4. If you're going into it wanting literature or like the deepest thought-provoking substances, you're probably not going to find it unless you purposely look for it. But it was still good. But otherwise it's just a book of quotes. A book of inspirational quotes, you know, kind of thing, with a couple of characters placed into it. Anyway, so I'll give it a 4 stars for The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. So next up I am reviewing Wormwood Abbey by Christina Baehr, and it is the first book in the Secrets of Ormdale series. So this is a fantasy historical fiction book. It is like quite short for a book. It's quite small. If you get the physical edition, I don't have it, but it's on my wish list. And Wormwood Abbey follows Edith, who goes with her family because her father has inherited this property, and her cousins, which they've sort of been disconnected from, are currently living there, but they lost their brother and father. And so they go there to deal with the inheritance stuff. And because the father of Edith, he doesn't necessarily want the property, he's like, I'll just give it to my nieces and they can have the property and run it, or whatever they really want. Whatever they want, I'll give it to them, because he's a pastor of a parish and he's like, I don't really need it. But when they get there, there's a few weird things happening, and there's the next door neighbour from Drake Hall. And yeah, there's just some strange things, and then Edith stumbles across a little lizard looking thing, and so there's some secrets. Now, what did I think of this one? I think it was a fun time. I did listen to the audio adaptation of it, which helped. It was just a fun time. I think it gave me hints of Encyclopedia of Fairies, but ultimately I think it was just the fact that they're like British sounding, and she's like a writer sort of, and she's researching into what these little secrets are, but I don't think they really have that much in common, really. But I think it's just the British narrator. Here's the thing, I really enjoyed it, but after rating it, I did rate it a 5 stars on Storygraph, but after mulling on it a bit, it's a good starter novel, but you really didn't get much depth of character other than Edith, who you sort of knew more. The others are kind of, I don't know, a little bit bland. Like, I never really attached myself to any of the characters, but it was a fun time. And the little lizard thing was quite cute. So I enjoyed the little lizard thing. And the little bit of mystery. But it wasn't like I'm sitting there trying to figure out the mystery. I just was just following along. So I don't know whether it would be 5 stars at this point in time. I probably, like, it's still a good solid book, but it doesn't give me that 5-star feeling, which, you know, ratings are all just up to opinion anyway, so I wouldn't take it too seriously. But yeah, I think it's a good start to the series. I'm interested to follow on with the series. There's a relationship between Edith and the next door neighbour. I don't know how to describe it, because she's like, oh, he's a bit of a weird character, and yet the next moment they're like palo friendos, and I'm like, maybe it's just, it takes me a long time to become friends with people, and I think that may affect my believability in the speed of like turning from like, oh, this like a bit strange and weird, to we BFFs now. But as I say, it was a really fun time, and I think it's a good start to the series. But I am going to give it a 4.5 stars instead of my original 5. Next up, I read Absolutely Not in Love by Jenny Proctor. Is this the second hockey romance of this video? Yes. I'm just continuing on with the series. Because I'm doing writing as well, my mind frame isn't all there, and it takes me a while to read books. And these romances, I get it. I get it why the girlies are like, it's just a fun little time. Do I rave about them? No. But are they a good passage of time? Yes. Yes. Are they the greatest literature ever written? No. And it doesn't need to be. Anyway, Absolutely Not in Love is by Jenny Proctor, and it follows, well, 2 characters. You've got the male character and the female character. So you have Felix Jamison, who is the teammate goalie of the Abbey's ice hockey team. And then it also follows Gracie, who is a cello player in orchestras and teaches cello, and he's also a teacher at a school, I think. And she is sworn off dating ice hockey players. Very specific, I know, but she's like, no, I don't want anything to do with ice hockey players, because of one bad ice hockey player in the past, and the fact that her family chooses ice hockey over her in the past. Let's see. I like Felix. Felix is a booky, introvert, slight anxiety sweetheart. Okay, he is. And Gracie is a... Gracie. What do I think about Gracie? I don't know. I'm not the kind of person who would be like, I have a bad experience with people and their obsession with ice hockey, and then apply that to every single person that is involved in ice hockey, because it's not the sport, it's the people. It's like video games. Are there some people that are too obsessed with video games and place video games above everything else? Yes. And that's not healthy. But are they the ones that just enjoy a good time with some video games and can balance out what's really important versus a relaxing fun time? Yes. So not every person that plays video games has anger issues and obsessive. And the same thing, I didn't get that. There's one event that is like the breakup. It's like the third act event, and it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I get it, but also I don't really get it. The other thing is, like with the first book in the Abbey series, there are a lot of admiration of each other's like physical looks going on. And I get it, abs, whatever. But at the same time, the thing is, I don't know how you would write romance, like just quick fun times, without a little bit of this insta attraction sort of stuff going on. So I don't know how you would fix that when it's just a quick fun time. But if you're going to start dating someone, you're attracted to them on multiple levels, and one of them is physical. But at the same time, do I need to know about it? Like, I was enjoying it, fun time. But if you really think about it, Gracie is a little bit, I get it. She's got trauma. She's got a lot of stuff. At the same time, that's stuff you go to a therapist about. You don't just admit that, like, that's you kind of thing. It's like, oh, I have this issue, but that's just me. And you're like, well, is it though? Like, yes, but also you're applying all these things from other people who have hurt you onto new people that are obviously nothing like your previous encounters. I learned a lot about classical music in this, more than I probably ever wanted. And my sister-in-law is a cello player, so it was a weird crossover that I was like, oh, okay. I now know that Bach, the second movement, isn't Felix's favourite. There was a lot of talk on classical music, so if you're into that, that's a fun little tidbit. Now, I've been talking for 8 minutes, and I feel like I haven't said anything at all. Again, it's just kind of a mindless, fun, romantic, you get your happy ending read. I'll give it a 4 stars for what it is. And yeah, Felix, the main male character, good lad. Okay, the next book we are reviewing is Trixie Belden, The Gatehouse Mystery, and it is by Julie Campbell. And so this is the 3rd book in the Trixie Belden series, which is a middle grade mystery book that follows our heroine Trixie Belden and her next door neighbour Honey as they detective it up along with Trixie's brothers and then Honey's newly adopted brother Jim. In this one, we follow Trixie as she and Honey find a diamond in this little gatehouse, and they have to figure out how it got there because it was an abandoned little gatehouse. And there are some really suspicious little characters. Now, with this book, pretty much Trixie knew who had done it from the very beginning. It's just that none of the rest of the crew believed her. And so she was sort of just collecting evidence or trying to trap the bloke. Her brothers bagged her out. Now, Mart is her, like, the second brother in her family. He was like teasing, but in a brotherly way. Like, you know, he secretly adores her, but he teases her so much. Brian, unfortunately, didn't really join in on the teasing, so I'm okay with him. But then Jim, our lad Jim, our red-headed lad Jim, bags Trixie out so much in this, and it made me not like Jim. I was like, Jim, what has happened to you? Jim, come back to us, please, because this new attitude, it's not it. Now, eventually he did come around right at the end of the book, and then he's got all the praise. All of a sudden. So, they've got other people that you are suspicious of, but I was never suspicious of these other people. And Trixie was like, it's this person, and he was pretty obvious. And again, yeah, I was like, why do we have to bag Trixie out when she's obviously solved these other mysteries with her cluey thinking? But no, it's laughable that she could possibly be like a detective one. So I ended up giving it a 4 stars. It's still a fun time. I still love Trixie and it still gave me the summer vibes, but I was disappointed in those around. Trixie, Jim. It's just Jim, okay? But yeah, it's fun that Trixie's brothers have turned up, and so they'll be a bigger part of the following mysteries, I'm sure. Anyway, for Trixie Belden and the Gatehouse mystery, I gave it a 4 stars. So the next book we are reviewing is actually from the Deltora Quest 3 collection, and it is number 3, Isle of the Dead by Emily Rodda. And the Deltora Quest series is a middle grade fantasy, sort of got a bit of mystery in it as well, and dragons. If you can hear that random bloke going around on his little motorbike thing, I apologise. So in this book we are following Leaf, Barter and Jasmine, and of course Philly and Cree, as they go to find and destroy the 3rd witch that is poisoning the land of Deltora. So in this part we are actually dealing with a character that we met in the previous part. It's pretty gruesome. Some of the stuff they go through. Ouch. I shed a tear. I actually cried in this one. It was really spooky and at one point like almost Pirates of the Caribbean. And I was intrigued, but also it involved like decomposing skeletons and like sea slugs and stuff like that. How old was that guy? I don't know, there's a guy in this and he must be ancient. I can't remember if his kind just lives for a long time or what, but he must have been old. Oh, the dragons in this though, they were just lovable. In part 2, they weren't as lovable. They were just dragons, you know? They were just grumpy, kind of sneaky dragons. But in this one, it was adorable. 10 out of 10 for the dragons. But yeah, I had a fun time with this one, so I ended up giving it a 4.5. It was just a fun little time, but with a bit of spookiness. A bit of ooze. And I'm looking forward to finishing the Deltora series with the next one. But not yet. So that was a 4.5 for Emily Rodda's Deltora Quest 3, Isle of the Dead. There was a lot of dead. Okay, our next book is going to be Divine Arrivals by Rebecca Ross, and it is the first book of the duology, Letters of Enchantment. And it is a young adult fantasy romance. And we follow Iris, who is a journalist in a city called Oath. Like a vow. And she has a rivalry in the newspaper company with a guy called Roman Kit. And they're not full-time workers, so they have to sort of try and compete to get columns, and they're competing for a permanent column. Now, Kit does seem to be winning in regards to that, because she's having a tough time. Her mother is a drunkard, and her brother has gone off to fight in the war years before, and therefore she's kind of a bit lonely. She's trying to hold everything together by herself. So it follows her as she chronicles on the war that is happening between these two gods. And also she has a typewriter where she writes on it, and she gets little replies to her letters that she types on her typewriter, puts in the cabinet closet, and she gets replies from a random person. And we don't know who this random person could possibly be. I liked Kit. And I liked Iris. I did. I thought they were good characters. The romance part of this book, I didn't feel the growth of the relationship. They were at one stage and then suddenly they were confessing that they really actually liked each other. I don't know. I don't know whether I understand it or I don't understand it. Because it's the first part in a duology, we do get a cliffhanger. And what a cliffhanger it is. Did I foresee what was going to happen happening? A little. Do I also see what the next book is going to entail? And does it make me sort of reluctant to go on because I can see who the bad guys are? I can see a plot. And it hasn't been answered in the first book, so therefore it has to happen in the second book. And I'm just like, do I care about it though? If I just learn along with the character, that's fine. I'm like, oh wow, they're the bad guys. But when I know who the bad guys are, and I'm like, oh no. So I ended up giving Divine Rivals a 3.5. Still good, still solid, but just not super loving it. Again, 3.5 is a decent review. There's nothing especially wrong. I liked the typewriter letters back and forth, and I did adore each character. The stuff happening around them, was I super interested? Not really. Now, because it does feature a war, there are some war scenes, but I think because it was balanced with the romance, I never felt overly anxious. If you're the kind of person that gets anxious over like war scenes, I think it's not as bad in this one. I can't speak for the next one, but in this one, it was balanced out with the romance, which some might think is a bit complacent because they're like, well, I would have liked to explore the real dark sides of war. But in this, you still see the dark side, but it's balanced with this romance. So it's not quite as hard-hitting, here's the gruesome side. Which of course is less anxiety-inducing, therefore why I personally liked it. Preferred it, in fact. But whether that stays the way for the next part of the duology, because I think we'll be really focusing on the war and the gods in the next book, I just don't know. Anyway, I'm reviewing Divine Rivals, and it was a solid book. Not super amazing, but good enough that I will continue and read the next book. So yeah, that was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and I gave it a 3.5 stars. Okay, the next book we are reviewing is Skip Beat, volumes 4 to 6, and it is by Yoshiki Nakamura. And it follows Kyoko, who joins the showbiz after she gets betrayed by her childhood friend / crush, and she seeks revenge. And she seeks revenge in the showbiz because he is a famous singer and he's really growing high in the ranks. And so she has to start at rock bottom, but she's determined to get back at him and make him regret it. Make him admit that she's awesome. But along the way she meets Ren, and Ren isn't very happy about her using acting as a revenge scheme, and so they're a bit at odds. So in these volumes, we start out, Kyoko has a little gig as a giant chicken on like a talk show. So she has this role as a giant chicken called Bo. The person who was going to play Bo got sick, and so she's taken over just for this time. Unfortunately, things go a little bit haywire. Unfortunately, yeah, things get a bit crooked there. Then next she has to deal with this rich girl who thinks she can pay her way to the top to beat Moko, who is Kyoko's bestie, but she doesn't necessarily want to be Kyoko's bestie, but they're all trying out for this commercial slot. And then finally, Ren here, he needs a manager because his manager, Yoshiro, is sick. So they need a temp manager, and they send Kyoko, and that's where it sort of ends. I just really love this series. Was the bit with Bo a little bit cringe? Yes. And it's okay if you read it the first time through, but if you're on a repeat read like I am, you know what's going to happen and you hate to see it. And the rest I just love and adore. I like seeing Ren and Kyoko and that grow, and Kyoko make friends and win over everyone, pretty much. And I was happy to meet Bo again, Bo the giant chicken. It is a reread, and I'm just giving it the same score as before, which is 5 stars. Nothing much to say past that, other than it's a good romantic shoujo manga that focuses a lot on friendship and the acting world, and Kyoko here is a little whiz when it comes to acting. That was Skip Beat volumes 4 to 6 by Yoshiki Nakamura. Okay, so next up we have The Ranger's Apprentice, book number 3, The Icebound Land by John Flanagan, and it is a fantasy adventure series. So Ranger's Apprentice follows Will, who is a ranger's apprentice, and he goes on all manner of different adventures. He's really only recently become an apprentice, but he's already been on so many adventures. He's taken part in a war. He's got a lot going on, this lad. But in this one, we kind of don't have much to do with Will. In the very beginning, we get a little bit, but Will's not really there for the rest of it. Most of it, we're just following Evelyn as she goes about trying to escape the Scandians. And then we also follow Horace and Holt as they try to track down Will, and along the way end up facing all these different knights that keep challenging them at bridges. I really liked Holt and Horace in this. It was just fun following them. Was Holt probably the main person I was following then? Yes, but Horace had his good moments too. Also, we had Evelyn, who had a much bigger role in this one, and she really had to toughen up Buttercup, and she did. She was never weak per se, but she had to get over her slight, well. Also, the Scandians in this, they got some things going on, and it's probably for not the youngest of audiences, let's just put it that way. I wouldn't be reading it to my, like, 5-year-old. A young teen would be fine with these books. I think it's meant to be a middle grade series, but there is drugs. There is drug addiction and slavery and a lot of death and torture and that sort of stuff in it. So I wouldn't really aim it at a super young crowd. It would definitely be like young teens onwards, I think. Nothing too explicit, but it does deal with certain like topics that might scar a young fragile mind. But then again, I am not a middle grader, so I don't know what the kids are reading nowadays. Just for one, there is, yeah, drugs, drug addiction, slavery, torture, and death. Anyway, what am I going to rate this? This is probably an important part of rating it. I think I landed on a 4.5 for this book. As I say, Will wasn't really there. I think it was good to show Evelyn had a bit of backbone to her, so I guess in that sense, but it wasn't super interesting. But then, yeah, Holt and Horace, that was the main story I was interested in. When I got to their chapters, I was like, that was the interesting part for me. I don't know if that makes me an unsupportive girly, but it was just the fact of the matter was Holt was more interesting in this one. And he kind of is in the others too. I might just be a Holt girly. Maybe it's just I support Holt more than the other characters. Anyway, so Ranger's Apprentice, The Icebound Land by John Flanagan gets a 4.5 from me. So our final book for this wrap-up is going to be Father, I Don't Want This Marriage by Roal, which is adapted by Yuri, and the original story is by Heesu. And it is a manhwa fantasy romance with an isekai sort of storyline. Although you don't really feel much of the isekai, it feels more like a reincarnation or like time travel redo rather than an isekai, but technically it is an isekai. And it follows Juvelian, who is the daughter of a duke. And in the book of the girl who then possesses Juvelian, in the book, she goes through life and she gets accused of poisoning the princess. And despite denying the claims that she poisoned the princess, no one believes her. Her father drags her off and she's like, I didn't do this, Dad, but her and her father have never really been super close. Her father kind of neglects her, just ignores her a lot. And as a result, Juvelian sort of attached herself to this other random guy that she got obsessed with and therefore poisoned the princess because of, you know, love interest dynamics. Or did she? And so she's telling her father, like, I didn't do it, and her father doesn't believe her, hands her a knife. It says, use this. Then locks her in a room where only the royal family members can enter, and it's like a forever prison. You can't escape it, pretty much. Only the royal family can, like, enter, exit, and grab people, etc., etc. As she is in there, the crown prince comes in, and, well, he says to the guards that he's going to torture her a bit, but he won't kill her. And she's like, well, I'd rather die with honour than flip it. And so she takes the knife that her father conveniently gave her and, well, she dies. And so the girl who has possessed Juvelian, she's like, I don't really want to do that. And so she, first of all, at the very beginning, breaks up with the random guy who she was obsessed with. She's like, I don't really, like, I am so sorry, sir, for stalking you and all that, but it's over now. So go on your merry way. So it now follows Juvelian as she tries to become independent of her father and avoid all her death flags. And of course she's changed a bit now because she doesn't yell at the maids because she's lonely. She's quite independent. She is independent. She already is. And that might change a few things around the dukedom. In this one, we are jumping into the story, so obviously we see this beginning and we see her break up with the random guy who none of us really care about, do we? And then we get a few scenes of the father and we realise that maybe father doesn't hate her. Maybe father has a few things going on. It's just a bit awkward. Also, we meet her father's underling, who might not be her father's underling, or might be trained by the father, but not necessarily his underling. Oh, of course I gave it a 5 stars. It's fun time. The artwork is rather unique in this one. It's not quite the same as other manhwas I've seen. A Stepmother's Martian or Villains Are Destined to Die. It's a little bit different, but again, those two are different from each other. Why not this one be different as well? But there's little chibis or little expressions that are just so funny and so good for the eyeballs to see. And the expressions and everything and the little details. So much fun. Unfortunately, the English translation is like, you have to pre-order for the future releases. They have 4, I think, for sale, but 3 of them are pre-orders, and this is the one that's released, so alas, it is a waiting game, as is most of the translated work I get. Most of it is pre-order. But, you know, at least they are making them. You know, they're getting through them and translating them, so there's hope for a very interesting future of translated manhwas and light novels and stuff. So I'm excited because I love it. So 5 stars for Father, I Don't Want This Marriage, Volume 1. And that's a wrap for November reading. It was fun, as I say. I had other things going on, so I felt like I didn't accomplish much, but I still got through 10 books, which is good. So let me know below how your reading month was, and whether you've read any of the books I have. And I shall see you all later in the next coming weeks of December to see what I'm reading then. So until next time, peace.
T26 끝